So just as the children going out, I want to say thank you for inviting me along this morning just to share a little bit with you about the work of the International Meeting Point. And it's interesting that Ivan started with that prophecy from Isaiah. And actually, I was thinking of another prophecy from Revelation 7, which reminds us that after this I looked, and there before me was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, people, and language, standing before the throne and in front of the Lamb. And they were wearing white robes and were holding palm branches in their hands, and they cried with a loud voice, "Salvation belongs to our God who sits on the throne and to the Lamb." It reminds us this morning that while we're a predominantly white congregation here sitting in Northern Ireland, that God's kingdom, Christ's plan, is not just for one group or one people, but Christ's plan is for the whole world. And you know, the amazing thing is, here in Northern Ireland, we've got the whole world coming to us. It is who of us here who are around Ivan's age, because he's older than me, who of us could have imagined that there would be more than two tribes in Northern Ireland? We always imagined a Protestant and a Catholic tribe, and that's us. But now we have so many people from around the world. But I know that some people who might say about all these people coming in to our country from different countries, some people might say, "Can't get a job anymore, all these foreigners." Other people will say, "I can't get an appointment at the doctor's anymore because the place is full of them." And this is the way some people think about it. But of course, 2 Corinthians 5 reminds us that from now on we're to regard no one from a worldly point of view. Though we once regarded Christ in this way, we do so no longer. I don't want us this morning to think about in the church, and I'm speaking to the church. This is to be our Christian response to all these people coming from across the world. We should see it as fulfilling Christ's plan to bring all of these people into his kingdom. And he's putting it up to us by giving us an opportunity to witness to them, so that if they go back to their own countries, they can share with their brothers and sisters and not need to do sort of orientation and learning languages and getting into new social groups. They already belong to something. So I want to share with you about the International Meeting Point, and you can decide whether it's worthy or not of you supporting United Appeal, because about 80 or 90% of our funding for the International Meeting Point comes through United Appeal, and that is so important. Do you know that I had a girl in from the Lord Mayor's office last week, and she wanted to give me money? I've got another high-up civil servant in the OFM, DFM, and they wanted to give the International Meeting Point money. And I even had a woman from the National Lottery come to me and say, "We want to give you money." But I think it's so important that if we are involved in God's work, that God's people should provide it. I think that's a challenge to us, because if we take money from other people, we will be tying our hands, and whoever pays the piper calls the tune. So let me tell you about the International Meeting Point, and we're going to reference and we're going to frame it this morning in the terms of Ephesians chapter 2, because there's so many things that we could pick from Ephesians 2. We haven't time to go into them, but one really hit me, and it's verse 21 and verse 22. "In him, the whole building is joined together and rises to become a holy temple in the Lord. And in him, you too are being built together to become a dwelling in which God lives by his Spirit." You see, the International Meeting Point only works because we work together to build the kingdom of God together. And so we are all being built together as living stones into his temple. So this is our logo, the International Meeting Point. We try to make it where everyone is welcome. And you know, when I first got a guy called Mark Houston to design this, I showed it to some people for approval, and you know what they said to me? A lot of green, white, and gold in that there, so there is. Can't have that. So I got Mark to redesign it, and he redesigned it actually with the colors of the rainbow. You can't use that. That's the gays. That's their color. You can't use that. So Mark redesigned it for a third time, and this is it. And the truth is, there's still a lot of green, white, and gold in that there, so there is. But we try to make the International Meeting Point a place where everyone is welcome. There we are on the Lisburn Road, just up above the City Hall. We did start in Ulsterville Presbyterian Church when it closed down. There's another sermon in that, but we haven't time to go into it. But we meet in a very large upstairs, above all the shops, just up above the City Hall. And that's our big plaque up on the wall that says where everyone is welcome, and it's hard to live up to that. But here's what I like to think. I like to think the Lisburn Road is a river full of fish. And all day, outside our doors, the fish are swimming back and forward. And our job is to attract fish out of their main swim and into a pond, if you like, where we can let our nets down for Jesus Christ. Because that is our purpose. And if we take money from other people, we will be detracted from our purpose. I say to my staff and to the volunteers in the meeting point all the time, the main thing is keeping the main thing the main thing. And our main thing is to try and get converts to Jesus Christ and to try and see them become disciples of Jesus Christ. And to do that, we attract fish. So everything that we do is a way of attracting fish into the International Meeting Point. To give you an idea, you might not be able to see that slide. It's quite, well, maybe you can because it's gigantic. On one day, we did a survey. On one day in the International Meeting Point, we had 121 people from 30 different countries. 121 from 30 different countries. And you can see the biggest slice of the pie, if you like, or the cake, are people from Northern Ireland. 35% of the people who come to the meeting point are people from Northern Ireland. And 100% of the people have the same thing in common. They are lonely, they are disenfranchised, they are depressed, they have no support network, they have no family. That could be because they're from a different country, or it could be because they're living alone round the corner from us and they come into the meeting point and they have made it their own community. So that gives you an idea of the kind of numbers that we can have through the meeting point. That's me, obviously, on the right, as you look at it. The girl in the middle is Sharon Heron, our deaconess. Sharon works with me in the International Meeting Point, and we need a woman in our ministry team simply because we have so many Muslim women in the meeting point that it's impossible for me to go visit them in their own homes. And Sharon is really the mother of the meeting point now, and she works with us Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And then she's got another job in the local church on a Friday and a Sunday. But she's with me 4 days of work a week. And the other chap is just a new addition to the meeting point. He came to work for us in May. His name's Henry Coulter. We advertised for a third person to work in the mission, in the meeting point. And Henry was I think he was with OM for 30 years in Bangladesh. He taught English in Dhaka University. And a very gifted, lovely guy. And he's now working with me as the assistant leader of the International Meeting Point. So that's the paid staff, if you like. But we're much more than that. We need volunteers. It's as the volunteers work together that we build ourselves up together in love. And at the minute, we did a survey, a questionnaire among 55 of our most basic volunteers. So we have about 55 volunteer. That's the size of our base. The guy with the pink ready colour on is the Reverend Ivan Steen. He's the minister of Windsor Presbyterian Church. He volunteers 1 day a week in the meeting point. He comes along and he talks to people who are now going to his congregation. He has a Bible study for me on a Wednesday. There's about 25 people go to that from many different countries. And right now, this morning in Windsor Presbyterian Church, there will probably be about 40 people, well, at least 40 Iranians, never mind people from Africa or people from China, who are now attending that church. And he comes and he does what I tell other people. Look, this is a place where we want to fish for Jesus Christ. Bring your own fishing rod. Bring your own fishing rod. And if you can meet someone and befriend them in the name of Christ, then bring them to your church. Bring them to your home for a meal. And then we'll praise God together. So Ivan volunteers 1 day a week. The guy in the middle is a Nigerian called Edmund. He volunteers 2 days a week. And the guy on the left is Chinese. He volunteers on a Wednesday. He came to do a degree from China to Coleraine University. An atheist, befriended by a Christian at Coleraine University, started going to Port Stewart Baptist, got his degree, got a master's degree, got a PhD as well, became a Christian in the middle of all that, and now he lives with me a few days a week, volunteers in the meeting point, and he's going to a sort of a college in East Belfast called Cornhill. And you could pray for Victor, because this Wednesday coming, we're going to go out among the Chinese students. There are hundreds of Chinese students at Queen's, and we're going to give them out leaflets in Mandarin, advertising a new Mandarin Bible study. Our core work, we do different things to attract people. So Henry teaches English, I teach English. That attracts people in. You'll see about food that we give out. It attracts people in. But our core activity for the gospel every day is we have a Bible study every day. So we have one on Monday. Sharon does it. Vera does one on a Tuesday. I will do an English language class on a Tuesday night through the Bible. Ivan does a Bible study on Wednesday. Victor will do a Bible study on Wednesday. We have another English Bible study on a Thursday by a girl from Drumbo, and we have 2 Farsi Bible studies on a Thursday, and we have a Bible study on a Friday. So we try to keep the Bible as our core. That's some of my teachers, Bina, Penny, and Kay, and myself, but we've now got a teaching team of about 12 or 14 teachers who teach at different times during the week, and it's a way of attracting people into the meeting point. They're all qualified teachers, and they all give their time for free. That's my wife in the middle, a girl from the markets who's got converted and is now going to Windsor Church. And the other lady in the bright red is a retired doctor from Low Memorial. She does CAP in the meeting point, and she supports us, and she volunteers from time to time as well. Very important volunteer in the meeting point is this lady with the blue. Her name's Vera Kerr. She was a missionary in Africa. Vera has a Bible study among ladies every day, or every Tuesday, but she also would witness from table to table, and I've got other retired missionaries who witness their faith from table to table when people and talk with them. The girl beside her in the middle is called Susan. Susan is from China, came to my English classes. Susan was a Buddhist, and Vera invited her to church, and she asked her husband for permission. He was doing a PhD in physics at Queen's. Susan, he said, yes, you can go. So she went to church. Then she started attending Vera's Bible study, was challenged by the Word of God, and became a Christian. And we were doing a Christianity Explored course, and the first night we invited people along, and she brought her husband. And he came along to it, and he said, I'm not a Christian. I'm a scientist. I don't believe there is a God. But, he says, something has happened to my wife. She's not the same person that she was. I can see she has changed completely. So he said, I've just come along tonight to find out what is it that has changed my wife. So he has gone from that. He got his PhD in physics. He's now working in Cambridge. And Vera keeps in touch with Susan. First of all, he started going to church. And then he went to church every week. And just in the last month or 6 weeks, he started attending a men's Bible study. So you can pray for him. God, the entrance of your word brings light. And his wife, her example, first made him curious. What is it that has changed my wife? Isn't that a challenge for you and for me this morning as we're sitting here in church? It scares the life out of me. That is such a challenge to us. When your neighbor looks at you, or when your husband or your wife or your father or your children look at, do they see something different about us? Is there something different that makes them think, I better go and find out about this Jesus? You know, I heard this said many years ago, and I'm saying it again this morning. Not many people are reading the Bible. I think it was Ivan maybe said it, because we were arguing about which version we should read. This was 40 years ago nearly. Which version should we read? And he said, I don't care what version they read, because it's just as long as they read it. Maybe he's changed. He's maybe hardened a wee bit since that. I don't know. But not many people are reading the Bible this morning. But I'll tell you, see, when you're sitting in school, or you're sitting in college, or you're working, or you're in the shops, or you're in the home and you're watching TV, your non-believing friends and family are watching you, and they're seeing, does Mum's conversation match her life? They're all reading us, friends, this morning, so let's be careful. The girl behind Susan there, her name is Nangsi from Indonesia, a Muslim. She came to me one day at the meeting point, and this was 5 years ago, and she said, look, it was actually my wife and I were opening the gate, going into the old church before we moved to our new building. And she said, I had to tell my husband I was going to the doctor, but I want to talk to you. So I said, come on in, Nancy. So we went in the back of the old Windsor, Ulsterville Presbyterian Church, into what was the minister's room, and we sat down, and I said, what is it? What do you want? And she said, look, I'm a Muslim, and us Muslims only care about Muslims. We don't care about Christians, but in this place, she says, I see you care about everybody. You treat everybody the same. How do I become a Christian? And right there in that room, we bowed our heads, and she asked Christ to come into her life. And she was immediately afraid to tell her husband. And she wouldn't tell him for maybe it was a week or 2 weeks. And she said, Keith, I want to be baptized, but there's something holding me back. And I said, Nancy, I think you need to tell your husband. You're now trusting in Christ. You do not belong to yourself any longer. We don't belong to ourselves. We belong to Christ. I said, you must. I know it's hard, but you should tell your husband. She told her husband, and he said, that's fine. And guess what? He started coming to my Bible study. Then he started coming to church. And 2 years ago, he gave his life to Christ. And now he volunteers every day in the meeting point. And she not only told her husband about Christ and brought him to church, the girl at the front holding the cup is another Muslim from Indonesia. And she told her about it. She said, come, you must come to this Bible study and hear about Jesus. And that girl did. And now she's a Christian and she's been baptized. And so that is how it spreads, friends. And we could repeat these stories so many times from the meeting point. That's not the Quran. That is a Farsi Bible, because we have 2 Farsi Bible studies. People from Iran. We heard of that cyclist yesterday from Iran who was killed, sadly, in the road race at the Paralympics. But every Thursday we have 2 Bible studies in the Farsi language. This afternoon in the meeting point, A preacher will come up from Dublin who's a converted Muslim. He now works for the Irish Church Missions, and he will have a service after they all go to Windsor. They will go to the meeting point this afternoon, once a month, and about 50 Iranians will meet and sing songs of worship and hear God's word in their own language. And it's so exciting to see God working among so many different people. Now, time is nearly gone, so we want to tell you some of the other things that we do in the meeting point. I could tell you many funny stories about this, but this is an 8-foot freezer we were giving because we now get food from supermarkets like Marks and Spencer's. We get food from food distributors who have overruns of certain things. So we need this 8-foot chest freezer, and then we give this bounty away to people for free. It's what we do. I have to tell you one funny story. Got a phone call this day from a wholesaler, and he says, Keith, I heard you in church there last week. He goes to Crumlin Presbyterian, and I was in Crumlin. He says, I'm a manager in a wholesaler's. He says, look, we've got a bit of porridge, he says, that we don't need. Do you think you could use it in the meeting point? I said, David, yeah, I probably could. How much are you talking about? He says, look, there's 12 bags in each box of 500 grams. So each box is 6 kilograms. He says, could you take 10 boxes? I said, that's 60 kilograms of porridge. He said, yeah. I said, all right, I'll take that. So he says, I'll send the lorry around tomorrow. So later on that afternoon, he says, look, would you take 50 boxes? That's 300 kilograms of porridge. I says, all right, we'll try it. So he phoned me the next day. He says, the lorry's on the way. He says, I just put 100 boxes on for you. That was 600 kilograms of porridge. And then he did the same with about 2 tons of tins that were dented. Do you know if you give food to the Trussell Trust Food Bank and they're dented, they won't give them away? They give them to me, and then I give them away. And so we distribute food. It's one of our ministries. There's some of the soup from Tesco's that nobody wants. And we get hundreds of that soup. We get tons of coleslaw. We get bread. We get potatoes, vegetables, and we use those because we cook food for people in the meeting point. That's Jalil there. That's Nancy's husband distributing food at lunchtime in the meeting point. That gives you an idea of the kind of crowd. We get about 80 people at lunchtime. We give free food to people at lunchtime. And you're paying for that through the United Appeal. But we'd never spend more than £20, and 20 to £25 max, and we feed 80 people for £25 every day of the week. Now, a lot of it now comes, you can see we're doing soup there that day, but we also, because we get all this bread and we get soup, and even, today, here's a challenge for Abbots Cross, not just to listen about mission and about what we're doing in the international meeting point. You could actually come along. Because quite often at PWs, I invite them, or if you've got a fellowship group or a home Bible study and you want to do mission instead of just hear about it, take a day off work and come and cook lunch for us and talk to people and meet people. And I promise you this, you will go away a changed person, because everyone who comes, they absolutely love it. And to actually see and talk to people. That's just crowds in the meeting point. You can see we do all kinds of different things. And lunch is a big thing that we do. And we're going to finish very soon now with this story. I haven't time to tell you about our clothing ministry. This guy here is called Omar. He's from Palestine. He used to cook lunch for us. That's what he cooks in the top left-hand corner. And you couldn't eat it. It's rotten. Absolutely rotten. And I know there is a God who answers prayer, because he now lives in Germany. But that's Stacey there cooking her curry down below. Stacey cooks curry for us, and behind her is another guy from Windsor. He got saved and through one of our courses and is now a believer as well. I was talking about our kitchen, how poorly equipped it was. Some ladies from Banbridge Dromore came up to cook lunch, and they thought our cooker was disgusting. It was so small. We cooked for 80 or 90 people on a cooker this size, so they bought us one of these lovely big cookers, and there was even enough to put new doors on our cupboards in our kitchen. Speak to me afterwards if you think you would like to come and cook lunch for us someday. You'll really enjoy it. That's our English class for ladies. A retired midwife manager from the Royal Hospital now teaches English for us on a Tuesday. We have about 40 Muslim women come on a Tuesday just to learn English. That's a Bible study or an English class, I can't remember. It's one of our little rooms. Wish I had time to tell you about these people. Wonderful stories of what God is doing in some of their lives. And these two as well. Sorry, time's gone. Last thing I want to share is a bicycle ministry. So many people that come to the meeting point now are coming from different countries and different parts of Belfast that they have to get 2 buses and they've no money. So a church said to me one day, I was showing Henry around Belfast, around the Presbyterian churches, and a church phoned me and says, look, we have £1,000, we want to give it to the meeting point, but we want it to go to something special. So I just said, we're starting a bicycle ministry. And we buy bicycles from a man who renovates them. Love Works, I think it's called. We've bought about 20 bicycles off him so far. And we give them to people who come to the meeting point but live 2 bus rides away. We've given 28 bicycles away now, something like that, just over the summer. But I'm now extending that, and I'm going to ask churches, look, if you've got a bicycle in your garage you're not using anymore, give it to us. We've got a stand and some tools, and we can fix them up ourselves, and we'll give them away to people who really, really need them. That guy there from Kenya, Christian, really, really appreciated his bicycle. No, Nigeria he's from. His name's Kenny. We have internet in the international meeting point. People can Skype and can Facebook and stuff like that. We do that as a way of attracting people. We have local schools that help us by doing choirs and things like that. Just anything to get people in. Wish I had time to tell you about racism in Belfast, but I haven't. That was a Lord Mayor, Nicola Mallon, came about racist. We had 3 families put out of their homes in Protestant areas, by the way. And she came about racism. Haven't time. Prayer updates, Twitter, Facebook. That's how we stay in touch with people. I couldn't believe people looked at Facebook, but when my wife puts something up about our Sunday lunches, you get 400 or 600 hits. I can't believe it. People actually look at those things. Twitter, I've never used it, though I'm the person that's supposed to. I don't know what it does. But that's the international meeting point. That's what we do. And if you support United Appeal and you think it's worthy, that's what we do, and that's what your money's going to support.